Hello, this is Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, the second co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, president of Repairers of the Breach, and along with my co-chair, the Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris, executive director for the Kairos Center at Union Theological Seminary, and thousands of other people around the country and around the world. We welcome you once again to the National Moral Monday March on McConnell, addressing his meanness, his mayhem, and his madness, refusing to allow him to get a pass and to hide underneath the antics and the acting out of Donald Trump. We know the real deal. We also hear from people from Kentucky to tell the story. They co-host with us every week, because it is important that people understand that McConnell is not just a senator. He is a majority leader, and in that role, there are built-in powers where he can literally hold up legislation, and he does, where he can literally block things from even just being discussed, and he does, and he can literally call himself the Grim Reaper, and he has. And we need to understand that you cannot just criticize Trump without criticizing McConnell. You cannot talk about what Trump has done without also talking about what McConnell has done. And this is action. If it wasn't for COVID, we'd be right there in the Russell building. We'd be sitting in his offices in DC and all over Kentucky. But because of COVID, we're doing this, as we say, Old Style City and New Jack City way. This is a call-in. This is a teach-in. You can join. You can act. The numbers are on the screen. We need people now to begin to go to our site. You see it on the screen there. Rob, tell them what it is.
You go to the bit.ly link right on our screen. You just go to bit.ly /call McConnell or go to our website. You'll see the link to it. And you'll actually, once you sign up, get a call from a number that will connect you directly to his office. And we'll keep on changing the number to new offices as we shut them down. So help us shut them down one by one and to fill up their voicemail boxes today. And
is that www, just for somebody out there that's like me?
If you're just someone out there, you can go to poorpeoplescampaign.org.
Poorpeoplescampaign.org.
You'll see a link.
Got it. So do that. Go up, but it's right there on the screen. We shut it down. We let them know that they're. Let me tell you, it is having an impact. It's all over the Senate and other places that this is happening. Even some of the issues when you're talking about, well, maybe we can bargain here, bargain there. It is having an impact because people like McConnell, Grim Reapers, they don't like to be exposed. They like to hide under the ugliness of other people. And today we're focusing on what McConnell has done with being so regressive in public policy and sometimes so just an obstruction that he is number one when it comes to why so many people are facing eviction. So many people are facing eviction. We have people who have firsthand knowledge. This is the kind of somber Moral Monday because folk have firsthand knowledge of what's already happening, people who are already being hurt, kicked out, but who are standing up and who are fighting back, who are saying they will not just roll over. We say what Frederick Douglass said. He said, every attempt to allow our movement, to stop our movement, the abolition movement, only serves to embolden and intensify our agitation. We are emboldened. We are agitated with the agitation of love and justice and righteousness and truth. And we are not turning back. And so you are here for the Moral Monday March on McConnell. Moral Monday March on McConnell. Call somebody, text somebody, tweet somebody, however you can. Get them on this line. Let's go to work. Let's go to work and shut down every line that he has across the nation. Let's go to work and register to vote. Let's go to work and get prepared to do everything we can to fight for this democracy. Now, we want you to know before we go to a video that we have some special dates coming up. We have some trainings that are happening where you can be trained in how to mobilize people, organize, register, educate people for the movement who vote. It'll be in the chat. It'll lay it out where you can actually go. It's twice a week. You can join to be empowered. And then on September the 14th, we're having Voting is Power Unleashed. Tomorrow, Monday, on September 14th at night will be Voting is Power Unleashed. And we're going to be training hundreds of thousands of people on voter protection and voter empowerment. We're going to have some of the best legal firms that are joining alongside of us to fight in this moment. The Forward Justice and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund will be joining with us, but you don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss September the 14th. We'll have more information about it, but you just mark it and the flyer will come up on the screen, put it in the chat room. You can get the information. But right now, it's old Mitch McConnell, the Grim Reaper. It's time to go talk to him. It's time to rattle his chains. It's time to rattle these phones. He called himself that. So I'm just saying what he said. So if anybody gets mad, I didn't call him that. I always called him Senator Mitch McConnell. But he decided to call himself the Grim Reaper. And I think since he said that's what he wanted to be named by, he didn't want what his mama named it. He wanted to be called the Grim Reaper. So I'm gonna call him what the man said. The man said he's the Grim Reaper. He's the Grim Reaper. Let's tell everybody he's the Grim Reaper. That's what he said. Look at this video now and be reminded of the battle in the midst of COVID and what has been caused, because not the germ is one thing, but the way in which public policy and our government has been taken over and misused in the fight against COVID has caused pain in so many ways. Take a look at this video.
And now I'm going to go to Polly, who's a certified nursing assistant.
Thank you for this platform. We are not protected. And these patients are coughing and there's all type of symptoms. As I speak to you right now, I'm busy smuggling PPE to my co-workers. This is mass murder. And we become the sacrificial lamb.
I'm sure, have y'all seen on the news what's happening in the meatpacking industry? You know, they were forcing people to go to work. How inhumane and how violent is that?
This Sioux Falls, South Dakota pork processing plant linked to nearly 900 cases, more than half of the state's nearly 1,700 cases.
Here in Alabama, the people who are dying the most from this coronavirus are Black. But I'm sure the vast majority of those that are dying are poor.
You'll forgive me if my jaw's on the ground. U.S. weekly jobless claims 6.6 million versus 3.1 million expected. 6.6 million.
We are clearly in a major recession with major impacts on working men and women in this country.
In Kansas is where I'm at. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and our jobs are connected to our healthcare. It's also exposed what we already knew, was that some lives are deemed more important than other lives. Some lives are just disposable. So I think that I continue to stay connected to the Poor People's Campaign because it's a matter of life and death.
You see that? That's why you have to get on these phones. A lot of that pain that you just saw is a direct result of McConnell and Trump in their way of responding, giving more to corporations than to communities, and caring more about the sickness, what I call a sickness of just getting more money for the wealthy and not focusing on the science and getting other people healthy. There's a sister that I thank God for, Tana Fogel, who's one of the tri-chairs in Kentucky. And she can tell you the truth about McConnell like nobody else can, and lay it out why we need to really be doing this moral march on him and also engaged in massive voter registration. Tana, would you just greet the folk from all over the country, all over the world, and tell them why you Kentuckians are co-hosting this National Moral Monday with us?
Hey, everyone, this is Tana Fogel out of Lexington, Kentucky. Look, when Reverend Barber said, flood those phones, I need you to get on those phones and flood Mitch McConnell's office. The Grim Reaper, yes, we are not going to take it anymore. I've got an action alert for you. On September the 21st, listen, Kentucky, can you see me? Can you hear me? On the 21st of September, we are going to go across Kentucky with caravans. He has offices in Louisville and Lexington, Bowling Green, Fort Wright, London, and Paducah. We need everyone to come out. We'll give you more information as we mobilize and organize, but we need you. Send him packing. Send him back. As a matter of fact, just throw his stuff up out of office. We need you. He is hurting every Kentuckian. Black, white, rich, poor, gay, straight, religious, non-religious. We need you to get on board. I'm begging you. Send him out of office. Get on the phones, text, tweet, do everything you need to do. He's no good. He is no good for us. Thank you, Reverend Barber.
Thank you always. And I'm thinking about what you said, because in this recent bill, we fighting more for that help bill. We wanted more. But this man literally told folk, I'm not going to take care of the teachers. I'm not going to take care of the folk facing evictions. I'm not going to provide health care. I'm not going to provide living wage. But until you promise me that I can get another $250 million in tax cuts for the wealthy, and until you make sure that corporations that didn't treat people right, didn't provide for them right, are protected from liability. There's something wrong with that. And that doesn't sound like the most folk in Kentucky. I have some roots in Kentucky, but it seems like Mitch is more concerned about his wealthy friends than he is about the average Kentuckian. Do you see it that way? Yeah.
I do see it that way,
Yeah.
Reverend Barber, and it's a shame. We've got so many hurting people here in Kentucky, people who don't have good cleaning water. We can't go to schools anyway, but they can't even get the Chromebooks for the students. And just like the young lady said, who suffers the most.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, Tana, thank you so much. We love you. We love the folk out there in Kentucky. And the 21st, the cars are going to roll past every one of those. We're going to be like the refrigerator. We ain't going to keep nothing. We're going to tell it on them. That's up to the people to do what they want to vote. But they sure going to know the deal. They're going to know the truth. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Take
sir.
care now. God bless you. Laree Coma is a single mother of 3. Before the pandemic, she was working 3 jobs. I want y'all to hear that. 3 jobs. 3 jobs to no jobs, and is facing eviction for back rent for 3 months in the midst of all this going on with COVID. She'll know this week what the real deal is, and she's decided it's time for her to join and to speak up and to speak out. And so, Laree, we want you to take some time, it's 3 minutes, and take the floor and tell the whole world why you are saying to folk, we need to be challenging what McConnell is doing, because he could stop all of this tomorrow. He could call everybody back. He could pass that bill. He could put the moratorium back on rent and eviction. Talk to us, my dear sister.
So just like you said, before all of this had started, I did work 3 jobs. The day that the world shut down, 2 of my jobs immediately shut down. And then 2 days later, my last job shut down. So, they put in place all of these things that they were going to do to help us with unemployment and all of that, which was great, but it took them almost 2 months to fix my unemployment. So within 2 months, you have bills that are piling and piling up, and even though they have the suspension to where they couldn't cut it off, or they can't cut it off, it's still building and it's going to be there. So as soon as it's lifted, I'm sure somebody will be taking me to court.
So let me make sure that the world understands this. When they talk about a rent, they don't do utility forgiveness, but they simply do a moratorium, the bills still pile up.
Yes.
So which means whatever you owe, say in March, you might get a moratorium for April, May, but then June, you owe March, April, May, and June.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people don't understand. And that's directly because of McConnell, because other folk wanted to give a moratorium where you wouldn't even have to back pay. But what he's simply doing is, a forgiveness. What he has pushed is a moratorium, and then that makes you have to pay 4 months in the last month that you didn't have in the first month. So, yeah, thank you.
Once they started getting my unemployment rolling, it was I had to make a decision on what to pay. I put a little bit here, try to put a little bit there, but then I still have 3 kids that I have to take care of. So by the time that I divvied out the money and robbed Peter to pay Paul so that Jane didn't come coming, by the time the bills rolled back around, it was like I didn't pay anything because my unemployment was messed up for 2 months, and still to this day, I still have not heard from anyone about the 2 months unemployment that I did not receive.
No.
But you better believe I received that electric bill that's on my
sure.
refrigerator for $700. I've never had a bill, an electric bill for $700 in my life.
Let me ask you this too, and are all of your, and you know, Mitch McConnell is also against living wages, right? He doesn't believe in people making 15 in the union, and so I want folk to understand that this sister worked 3 jobs, because sometimes we get some people that come on these lines and they say, "Well, you people just out to go to work." Just if you're on the line like that today, either get delivered or get off, because the reality is, this sister said, "I'm working 3 jobs." And even with 3 jobs, did any one of those jobs have automatic insurance?
Nope.
Nope. I want America to hear this. People working now, and they don't have automatic insurance, and neither one of them automatically provided a living wage. And yet she said, "I'm fighting. COVID happens, no fault of my own. McConnell and Trump didn't handle it right. I applied for unemployment. Takes 2 months for that, and now." With him not sending any more additional help, you're waiting right now to see what's going to happen, right?
So right now, for the past month, I've been living off $300 every 2 weeks with 3 children. That doesn't even cover rent. $300 don't. So it makes me wonder about the future and what we're going to do, because now, don't get me wrong, I could go out here and I could get a job, but then what do I do with my children? Because if it's not safe enough for my 12-year-old to go to Fayette County Public Schools, how do I send my 2 and 3-year-old to daycare? Right. Actually, I had found a job, and they went to daycare for 3 days. And in those 3 days, the reliever teacher tested positive for COVID-19. So do I take that chance of sending my children back? Because this isn't going anywhere and it isn't cleared up. My daughter is in the back doing her schoolwork from home. So what do I do?
So let me ask you this, because your story is so compelling. We have a chance with hundreds of thousands of people right now across the country to call McConnell and tell him, pass that bill, pass a compassionate, just bill that has unemployment and has sick leave and has more rent forgiveness and rent moratorium. What would you say as somebody from Kentucky to the thousands of people that can pick up that phone and begin to push him hard? How bad do you want them to get on the phone and join people in Kentucky like you?
What I would tell people of Kentucky is to think of me, think of all the single mothers who are out here just trying to make it. If not, and this ain't even has nothing to do with me. This is strictly about them 3 little babies who do depend on me.
That's right.
So I need Mitch and everybody, not Mitch, I need everybody to pick up that phone and make that phone call, because there is thousands of me. There are people who don't even have the resources that I have. Just thank God I have a support team who just supports me, because without them, I wouldn't even be here right now if it wasn't for my team and my family. So think about the people who don't have that. We need you to pick up that phone and call for mothers and for children like me before we have these babies out here in these streets. And y'all know, once we get evicted and we have these babies in the streets, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to call Child Protective Services, and then they're going to be snatching our babies from us.
That's right. This is serious business, y'all. I want you to hear what our dear sister Loree Coleman is saying and get on these phones. And look, this is facing Black mothers, white mothers, brown mothers. It's, we know it's 140 million poor and low wealth people in this country, and the large majority of them are women and children. Sister Coleman, keep your head up. Don't quit. That's why we're a family. We're fighting together. We're gonna make it, and we're gonna fight through this, and we're gonna push and change this country. Thank you so much.
Please, for them babies, y'all,
for the babies,
pick that phone up for these babies, please. Right. I'm begging for these babies.
Y'all go to poorpeoplescampaign.org and go look on the screen. Let's get these phones going. And get these messages going in all over the country directly into Mitch McConnell's office, demanding a just and a fair and an equitable bill right now today. The Grim Reaper, you hurting a whole lot of people, and we're going to tell on you. We're going to push you. We're going to push you hard. Jenny Ramsey with the Catholic Action Center and Art Crosby with the Election and Fair Housing Council. They are a coalition fighting evictions in Lexington, and they have the numbers and the hard data. They're going to tell us what's really going on. See, because Trump right now, last week at his convention, he's trying to change the subject. He was trying to change it, make it about what so-called violence in the street. He knows good well that's just some people that have infiltrated and some people that are doing, it's not what the protesters are doing, but he's conflating all that together. He's trying to make it like that's the issue. The real violence is this violence, public policy. The real violence is the violence that he's engaged in. That's why we can't do violence in the street, because it takes away. He wants to change the subject. Well, Jenny Ramsey and Art Crosby got the numbers to say, you can't change the subject. This is the real deal. This is what you're doing, Mitch McConnell. This is what you're not responding to, you and Trump. And that's why we're pushing you. Can you all take it now?
Yeah, I'll start. So in Lexington, we saw that eviction crisis coming a long time ago. Back in May 2020, we started working with about 20 other agencies. We started putting together ways where tenants could reach out to us who are having trouble. And we did a really good job of finding people in need. There's about 2,000 people in our system. We know the needs there. About 44% of them are Black versus what you would expect, about 14% of the population. We know the average rent that people are owed, it's affecting households who rent for about $750 a month and below.
Slow that one. I want before to hear that. It's 44% Black.
Right.
But that also means then it's 56% white.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I want to make sure folks get that connection, because we want to understand the Grim Reaper hurt folk that look like him too, right? I want to be clear on that. Okay, go ahead.
We got veterans in there. You've got people who are trying to get unemployment, people who are in chemo and can't work. They're just people, seniors, disabled. It covers the gamut. So we've done a really good job of figuring out the need. The problem is we just haven't figured out what to do with it. The financial assistance just hasn't been there. Originally, our governor announced that there was an eviction moratorium. The Supreme Court originally put in a moratorium as well that said you couldn't file new evictions. And then you had the President of the United States say that he issued an executive order that would prohibit evictions. So people kind of felt protected. And then all of a sudden, last Monday, eviction court started. There were 53 people scheduled for a 1-hour eviction hearing last Monday in Fayette County District Court. So people had less than 1 minute apiece to say why they should stay in their homes.
Wait, I want folks to hear this again. So the governor issues an order, Supreme Court issues an order, Trump issues an order, but McConnell refuses to pass the bill to get folk the money they need. So even with all of those orders now, 100 and some odd folk, is that right? And did you say they had 1 minute?
Yeah, so eviction court last Monday, 53 people, 1 hour.
My God.
180 people scheduled for this week in Fayette County District Court, 180 families. Well, let's make sure that's families. So, that's usually 3 people per family. So it's affecting a lot more than 53 people. They're going through court and they're getting evicted. They're getting put out in the streets. And we see it's just a different system we have for home renters than we have for home owners. Homeowners, the system is it takes a couple of years to lose your home. We are very much value somebody's property when they're a homeowner. When they're a home renter, we give you 7 days to get out of your home. We just treat it very differently. And we've done a good job of again, seeing, yes, there's a huge need. We just have not had any kind of systemic response. We just haven't been able to even communicate. One, we haven't done it. We haven't even been able to communicate to people what to expect. People are just crying. They don't understand what's going on. They don't know what to expect. And when they're calling us, I can't tell them what to expect because I don't know what's going on either. Jenny?
Well, here in Lexington, we did say, okay, faith and community folks, let's get together and let's make a difference directly. There are people suffering through with Art and the group. Our 48 unbelievable volunteers started contacting folks who were facing eviction, contacting folks who were going to court, and even some who went to court and were evicted and were trying to save their homes. Evictions are going on right now. I don't care what the governor's order or the Supreme Court or whatever. As Art said, they're going to court And even though the sheriff is not evicting folks, our constables are. Get that? I don't know. We have a mom with 7 kids that was evicted by the courts. We have a 72-year-old woman with her 78-year-old husband who is in the UK intensive care unit dying from COVID. And the 72-year-old woman is losing her housing as of tomorrow. Except wait, we stopped it. This group of people who care, they're not the government. We don't have those funds, but we have compassionate people in Lexington, Kentucky. So we've started a Save Their Homes effort, which has only been going on for 7 days. And by the grace of God and the good people, we have stopped 8 evictions. That's like taking a bite out of the elephant.
And let me ask you this, Jenny, but if you had this legislation, and if the Congress was to pass unemployment, and if you had this legislation that said that we're passing another moratorium, or better yet, a forgiveness,
yes,
people wouldn't have to, it wouldn't just depend on individuals. We would be doing it as a government, as a country. Because, you know, one of the things they've said to us, Mitch and some have said, well, the churches ought to take care of everybody. But the churches didn't cause this. The churches weren't the ones that were irresponsible in our response to COVID. The churches weren't the one that didn't provide people the PPEs and didn't get the science started and didn't do that. And the churches aren't the ones that don't pay people a living wage and make sure that people have sick leave and health care. It's amazing how people want to throw that when the crisis comes. But what you're saying with just 8, you could do that for just 8 people. But if you had, Mitch would let go of that money.
If he let go of it and do emergency vouchers.
Right.
Bishop, there are many ways that our government could be responding to the people who are losing their homes. We're not talking about the big businesses or little businesses. We're talking about our brothers and sisters. A 72-year-old woman whose husband's dying of the COVID. A mother with 7 children who has never had to ask for help and is about to be on the street. We've got to find, and see, Lexington is responding. Our government is, our state is doing the best. People say, oh, there is no problem because the president said there's no evictions. I'm sorry, that is not true. And we have to call it out.
Call it out, that's right. Now, I don't want to make my dear sister, Catholic sister, curse, because, you know, Dorothy Day would tell the truth and lay people out. You do know that Mitch McConnell wants $35 billion for another F-35 jet. And he's holding up the bill because he can't get that. And you do know that he wants $250 billion more for tax cuts. I mean, this is why I think people have to know this about. It's really too much power for one person, to be quite honest. After all of this is over, we need to relook at some of this power that we give to majority leaders and House folk, because when somebody like Mitch and McConnell and Trump get that power, they will use it to the nth degree to hurt people. Yeah. But listen, I don't want to rush on. What's your comment to folk? There are hundreds of thousands of people that we've had as high as 170, 200,000 people on the line. What do you want to say to them about calling Mitch McConnell? What do you want to say, you and my brother want to say to them before we move on?
I want to say that this is critical and this is immoral and we have to stop it. You know, whichever way, every community do their own thing, but we have to stop it and we have to get the government to do what is right.
That's right. And I like that. She didn't say what is Republican. She didn't say what is Democrat. She didn't say what is liberal. She didn't say she said what is right. She doesn't mean politically right. She means morally right. She means the moral center. The simple as what the Lord said about taking care of those who are the least of these. That's just as simple as you can get it. And so call this number, call Mitch McConnell right now. Tell other people he can do it. He alone. Listen, if he would just let the bill come to the floor, I want y'all to understand, he will not even let it be debated because he knows that the people have to debate it in front of the American people. A lot of the others who he's holding down, they would vote for it. Mm-hmm. But he said, I'm not even going to let you talk about it. I'm not even going to let it go to the floor. And so we have to push him hard and make these calls and continue to push him. We cannot be silent. Somebody's hurting our people. It's gone on far too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Thank you so much. to both of you. And look, we love you and look forward to even doing more work as we fight together to change the course of history. Listen, folks, we also need you to register to vote. You got to be registered to vote. You can't be upset about a political system and then sit home. God told Moses, what's in your hand? When he faced the Red Sea of opposition, he said, what's in your hand? Well, we know what's in our hands is the ability to vote. We can't let anybody stop us. September the 14th, we're having a big training. We want everybody anywhere to join it. It's going to talk about how we protect the vote, how we participate, what you can do beyond just mail-in, what you can do at early voting, and what to do if you decide to vote in person on election day. We're training people on how to do it. And so we're going to have some powerful things to say about that going forward. Join us on September the 14th. Also join us during the week for training. Right now, though, I want to show a quick video, 90 seconds, because it drills down even beyond what Jenny and Brother Art have showed us. Rob, would you bring it up?
The housing crisis is just beginning to unfold as federal and state moratoriums on evictions have begun to expire. This is New Orleans. This is Kansas. We know that almost a third of people failed to pay their rent or mortgage in June, a record high, and that a independent study by the COVID-19 Eviction Defense Project, who are economists and lawyers, estimate that between 19 and 23 million renters are likely to be evicted by the end of September. A more recent update of this that started with this same study extended this to the end of 2020, and the new estimate is that between 28 and 39, almost 40 million tenants are at risk of eviction by the end of the year. That's not including, homeowners who could fail to pay their mortgage, who will be in eviction proceedings, which will also number at least in the millions. Unless there's radical and dramatic action, we're going to see a wave of homelessness that we've literally never seen before.
Did you see that? Did you hear that? This is why we cannot give up. This is how we cannot turn around. This is why we cannot let Trump and McConnell change the subject. We got to focus on what's happening. In the midst of COVID, in the midst of the wealthiest nation in the world, a government with McConnell and Trump have blown dealing with this virus, and now they want people to bear the burden of evictions, and we have to stop it. And so I want to ask our co-chair, the Reverend Dr. Liz Theo-Harris is coming on. We have about a 5 or 6 minute block here for her, and she's going to then introduce Kenya Alcocer from California and Sierra Ramirez from the DC Tenants Unions, who are engaged in rent strikes. And they're not doing the rent strikes and saying don't pass the bill. They're saying because folk won't pass the bill, because we gave $3 trillion to corporations up front. I want y'all to understand that. The corporations got paid up front. 83% of all the money in the first bill went to corporations and banks. That's what we're dealing with, you all. And they're organizing rent strikes. The people that are dealing with this in that way as we push and fight for the government. And when we say the government, we're saying us. The government is not some spacey thing way out there. We're talking about us, we the people. We the people. It never said we the corporation, we the people. And so Reverend Dr. Liz, would you come on in your own way and then introduce our two sisters and let them come on. Then we got some special folk I'm going to bring on from the National Union of the Homeless. And then Mark Ruffalo, who's a tremendous actor and activist, is going to join us as a part of the closeout. Liz, it's in your hands.
Thank you so much, Reverend Barbara, and thanks to everybody for joining us on this Moral Monday. I'm going to start with a biblical quote. This one's from the prophet Micah. He says, "Doom to those who plot evil, who go to bed dreaming up injustice. As soon as it's morning, they're off, full of energy, doing what they've planned. They covet land and grab it, find homes and take them. They bully neighbors and their families, so see people only for what they can get out of them. But God has had enough. So we need everyone here to be flooding Mitch McConnell's phone lines. We need to be shutting down some of these phone lines with the message that we need a full relief package, that we need to end to these evictions, an end to these to people having no resources to deal with the issues that they're facing with right now. And indeed, Mitch McConnell, we have this message for you. Did you hear Micah 2? He said, God has had enough. Our message to you, Mitch McConnell, is to stop your meanness. Stop the misery on the backs of the poor, on children, on the uninsured, on the homeless, on the evicted. The misery that you are causing. And put an end to the mayhem of evictions and job loss and legislating injustice that you've spread. Because you have failed to pass a just relief package, there are tens of millions of people, of families at risk of eviction and homelessness. People are left with inadequate food and resources to care for their families. Hundreds of thousands are dying needless deaths from a virus that many countries have already controlled. But we know here in the Poor People's Campaign and those of us that are gathered for this Moral Monday that it doesn't have to be this way. This nation has the resources to end homelessness, but instead you use your power to bully. The Senate could suspend rent payments and evictions. It could extend unemployment benefits and raise wages. It could expand healthcare and establish a jobs program that builds new housing and infrastructure. But instead, Mitch McConnell and the Senate see people only for what you can get out of them. The Poor People's Campaign includes bold and visionary policies in our platform, including around housing, where we demand that McConnell, the Senate, and this nation actually mobilize resources and capacity to turn vacant units into affordable public housing. We protect and expand housing and rental assistance for poor and low-income households. We ensure that the costs of housing are within income abilities of every household. Prohibit rent increases and, in fact, stop rent payments right now as long as this crisis is going on. We in this country need to impose penalties on Wall Street, on real estate corporations and other institutions that are profiting off of poverty and have profited from the housing and financial crisis still today from 2008 and 2007 and 2009. And what we know is that we need to cancel the rent and the mortgages until this society recovers from these multiple pandemics. I personally have been homeless in my life. It's not something anyone should have to go through. And that's why hundreds of thousands of people in the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, are coming together, flooding McConnell's office with calls, mobilizing, organizing, registering, and educating people for a movement that will vote in November and keep organizing our power. We need everyone here to flood Mitch McConnell's office with calls. We have already shut down some offices. Let's shut down some more. And now it is indeed my honor to introduce Kenya Alcocer from California, from the Poor People's Campaign and Union de Vecinos, and Sierra Ramirez, who have been organizing powerful rent strikes, demanding that this nation take care of its people and do better. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. My name is Kenya. I'm from the California Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. And we are here in the fight on this rent strike. Our community members are not on rent strike because they are seeking collective power to overthrow their landlords. They're on rent strike because of the pandemic. They haven't been able to work and have the means to pay rent. Here in our state, we have one of the most expensive rents in the nation. A lot of our tenants are paying 75 to 90% of their income into rent.
Say that one more time, sister. I want the whole world to hear that because people miss that.
75 to 90% of their income goes to rent.
Yeah.
And that is before the pandemic. And one of the reasons why the LA Tenants Union, Union de Vecinos, and a lot of people have gone on this rent strike, it's because we're saying enough is enough. During this pandemic, we want to put our necessities first. Food, not rent. Medicine, not rent. Our ability to survive, not rent. And what it means to us is that we're putting our lives before our death. Rent is death. Paying our rent in these days means not putting a gallon of milk in our table for our children. Paying our rent means for people like myself who are diabetic, not being able to afford our insulin. So this is the reason why we're saying we're not going to pay our rent. And here in this state of California, which is a Democrat state, we have politicians that are Democrats that are saying, well, you know, the Republicans are doing much worse. So what we're offering you right now, it's good. So they're telling us that by tomorrow, we should pay 25% of all of the rent that we owe in order for us not to get evicted. This is the type of legislation that this state is passing currently. That means that I owe $6,000. By tomorrow, I need to pay my landlord $1,200 in order for me not to get evicted. And then get myself into a payment plan to make sure that I don't get evicted. And we're saying we can't afford that. There's no way anybody can pay $6,000 upfront plus the next month's rent and next month's rent and next month's rent. We're saying we need rent and mortgage forgiveness. We cannot afford to pay. We're not getting back pay from our employers. We're not going to work. We're not getting benefits from our employers that are getting us sick. We're not even getting sick pay leave when we get sick from COVID. So how are they expecting us to pay this rent? We're fighting back and we're saying enough is enough. Calling Mitchell McConnell, it's important for us here in California because we know that what's happening in the South eventually comes to California.
And so, and so I want to say, because Mitch McConnell, as the majority leader, is your senator. Because he might come out of Kentucky, but what he's holding up, if he did we want rent forgiveness, but if he did rent moratorium today, it would stop all of this craziness that you do. It's not everything we want, but it would stop that. And if he sent the stimulus money, you could get that today. So I think it's important. That's why we want you to come on from California, because people often see, well, that's just, Mitch is just the senator for Kentucky. No, he's a majority leader. That means he can hold up everything. Right.
He's impacting our nation. And that's something that we need to understand. Everything that is coming from his mouth, from his office, is impacting California. And that's why we're in this Poor People's Campaign. We know and we're learning that wherever the South goes, the nation goes. And we need to make sure that we're supporting our brothers and sisters in the South that are fighting back and making our calls is what we need to do here in California. So we're going to be calling. So thank you, Reverend Barbara and Reverend.
They told us the same thing. They told us that we have until tomorrow to pay. They told us that we had to pay 50% of our back pay, and then by the next month pay the other 50% on top of that month's rent.
So watch this. So you got Laria, and we just had Kenya. Now you all talking California to Kentucky. I'm gonna say something. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. I'm not. The other folk can hear it, but I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. Way back in the '60s, when people figured out that people like George Wallace, in other words, were a detriment to the whole nation, people would come into a state and help people register and vote. It might be that some of you, if you're hearing this, need to think about. And this I ain't telling you who to vote for. I'm just saying it might be that folk ought to think about some ways which now, between now and those folk that can find some ways to come in a place like Kentucky and help organize everybody you can, and just tell them to vote for justice. They'll know, just tell them to vote for what's right and examine folks. So I'm just suggesting, just like you all just hooked up on Zoom, and I know we might not be able to do it from COVID, but the way we could do it is media-wise. Everybody that's not in Kentucky, you have folk from Kentucky. You know somebody from Kentucky, and we need to be calling all of them, jamming these phones, and you need to be telling everybody you know that knows somebody, this time you cannot sit out. What we have said to Poor People's Campaign, we don't tell anybody who to vote for, but we tell you what your power is. And what we know is poor and low wealth people in Kentucky and all over the country, if just 20% more of them were to vote that didn't vote the last time, they could fundamentally shift who's in the White House, who's in the Senate, and who's in governor's office. I'm just saying, that's the facts. Y'all can do with it what you want to do with it. My job is to let you know the power that you have when you unleash it. All right, my dear sister. Okay, so we got a short frame here because we have to cut off about 4:30. So Sierra, are you on from the DC Tenants Union? I'm here, yes. Hey, my sister, talk to us.
Well, hi, thanks for having me. I just wanted to talk about how excited I am that just yesterday, us at the Woodner Tenants Union, with the support from the DC Tenants Union and a lot of other organizations in our city, we were able to deliver our demands to management. And of course, the number one demand is the cancellation of rent. But we're also talking about racial equity. We're also talking about language justice. We're talking about public health. And a whole lot of other issues that have been plaguing this building for decades, really. And I want to just emphasize and back up everything that everybody else has said so far. We need everybody's support. We're building power as quickly and with as much strength as we can in a really short amount of time. The eviction protections in DC right now end in December. So right before Christmas, they're fixing to throw a whole bunch of people out of this building. And so we're doing everything that we can to build our trust together, to support each other with mutual aid, to learn about things like solidarity unionism and direct action, to share experiences with each other and so forth, so that when it comes time for it, like, we'll be ready to do what we need to do to protect each other, whether that's facing off against management or the U.S. Marshals or what have you. But it doesn't have to be that hard.
That's
if we can get everybody's support, and if we can get people to help get this type of legislation passed, it could be a very, very different fight for us. But as it is, we're ready to put everything on the line for this. I haven't paid my rent since May. I know a lot of people lost their jobs overnight in the Woodner and in the other buildings in DC that are doing rent strikes. So a lot of people here have nothing. And we're putting everything on the line that we can. We got a lot of solidarity here, but this fight could really be transformed if we had some national support, definitely.
Well, let me just say something to you right here on the phone in front of everybody. You know, I have an immune deficiency. I have to be very careful with coming out. But we had talked about, and maybe God wants to do it when we thought about what would happen if we got 100 people to do social distancing, clergy and people to literally march on McConnell's office, right? With media in tow, all doing the tapes and delivering to him a demand. And we will actually deliver holy books too, and say, you don't read your Constitution, nor do you your Bible, and really make a spectacle of it. Let's talk, because it might be that before November and October, if the homeless tenants union, because if y'all willing to put it on the line, we grab some folk, we organize, and we have 100, 200 people 6 feet apart, lying down Independence, or take the middle of the street, and each of us go in two at a time, or one line at a time, into McConnell's office, or right up there to dramatize the shameful situation. You know, it might be that we consider the 21st when they're driving around his office in Kentucky, we do something similar. But I want to make a commitment to you that we're going to find a way to act before November and act publicly, because we cannot. And if we got to mask up and double glove and do everything we got to do, because we're not going to go out here and kill ourselves. Because my grandmama says some of these devils you have to outlive them. You have to outlive us so you can keep fighting. So you don't let them do that. You don't let them make you hurt yourself, but you figure out ways that you don't have to hurt yourself, but you can also put the focus on them. So let's talk. I know you're in touch with Liz. Let's make this happen. And we gotta get some people, might get some stars and some artists and some other folk. We could do this in a very way that will be powerful and safe. But we are going to fight, because this emboldens our agitation. Thank you, sister. Y'all need to check it out. Y'all need to hear what's going on. You need to call people, call McConnell, get on the line, tell somebody now. This is real, y'all. This is not reality TV. This is the real thing. This is what's really happening. Don't you get caught up in that Trump stuff, that Trump hype, and that alternate reality. And the real fear that people have is about their medicine and their houses and their housing, and losing that, and losing their jobs and not having unemployment. And these are fears that do not have to exist. I want the country to hear us. When you hear folk talking, listen, we gave the corporations everything. Somebody asked us the other day, what one thing do you want? We say, well, you gave the corporations 3 trillion things. How dare you ask poor and low income people, what one thing do we want? The money is there. The resources are there. We have to have the moral demands, and we're not going to let people drive us into the shadows. We're not going to be quiet. We're going to raise these issues. We need you calling us on. Rob, give me an update before I go to my dear sister Crystal and then go to Mark Ruffalo about what's happening with the phone lines across the country.
Yeah, let me check real quick. I know that we're definitely out of DC and going across Kentucky with hundreds and thousands of calls so far. But we definitely need people to go to that link and keep on calling to make sure because he's home in Kentucky right now, so we follow him there.
All right, well, come back to me after Crystal. Crystal Sanchez.
And you also have Pablo from Massachusetts.
Where? Is Pablo there? Okay, I see him, Pablo Johnson from Massachusetts. Can the two of you all come on? We're at, what time are we at? I don't want to push anybody off.
We're at 4:20, but we got a little grace past 4:30.
Just a little grace past 4:30. So if y'all could take 7 minutes, 3.5 minutes apiece, and then we're going to bring Mark on. Talk to us. Crystal.
Sure. So my name is Crystal Sanchez. I'm a representative of the National Union of the Homeless. I'm president of the Sacramento chapter of the National Union of the Homeless and SACSOUP, which stands for Sacramento Solidarity of Unhoused People. I'm here today to ask you to call Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. I'm going to start off with this statement. Our unhoused neighbors are not the problem.
That's right.
Inequality, gentrification, systemic racism, criminalization, corruption, greed, and lack of ethics and a moral compass in this country are the problem. Here in Sacramento, the capital of California, we hold the largest economy in the U.S. The U.S. holds the largest in the world. Yet, across the nation, the people live in severe poverty. Here in Sacramento, we have 11,000 unhoused neighbors on any given night. 700 of these are children, 200,000 plus in the state of California. Mass evictions are on the horizon. We're waiting to see the displacement of 38,000 people. Here in Sacramento, according to the HUD guidelines, we lack 63,000 units of affordable housing. The average rent has skyrocketed to $13.75 plus for a studio apartment. Minimum wage here in California is $12 an hour, and most who are on SSI receive only $998. So all of this places people on the streets. Once you're displaced permanently. It's very hard to get into things here. When we received CARES funding, the majority of it went to our sheriff's department, about 150 million out of 181 million of it, which leaves us, the people, fighting for $31 million in crumbs. We're here to continue the National Union of the Homeless legacy. No more death on the streets, housing now, homeless and not helpless. Sacramento Homeless Union is made up of the unhoused and advocates who organize to fight politically for housing, dignity, resources, and human rights. We fight locally, but we also fight statewide, serving over 1,400 meals weekly. When COVID hit, we were already semi-prepared because this is what we've been doing for a while. We didn't have zero funding or help from the city, the county, the states. It was all community-based donations. We immediately jumped into action with the community, asking for water jugs so people could wash their hands because there's no access to water or restrooms or any of that stuff. Access to the limited things that they did have prior was they had access to libraries and to Starbucks and things like that. Well, with shelter in place, that made it so it was inaccessible for the unhoused. On top of what we're dealing with COVID and fighting for funding and these scraps, we're also dealing with massive major fires right now. We have 357 of them in California. This affects our unhoused because, again, we don't have what we need to provide these people. We don't have people, masks to provide for people to be safe from the fire, for one, and the smoke, but for two, to be able to access businesses that are doing the mask only shelter in place. So what happened was primarily we had grassroots groups working together before COVID. The majority of these were seniors, at-risk folks that were coming out and serving food and making sure that the unhoused were taken care of. When COVID hit, though, these grassroots groups separated. We created what is called SACSOUP, which is basically our own infrastructure. We put together a medical encampment team with California North State University and UC Davis med students. They became our triaging and point of contact for the unhoused. The only way for the unhoused.
What are you trying to do?
We got a little technical issue there.
Crystal, you're freezing up a little bit. You might want to turn your video off so maybe we can come back when you to wrap up.
Yeah. Pablo, are you on?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Reverend.
All right. Yes, sir.
Okay. First off, I'm very humbled to be on this call. Paul Johnson, many call me Pablo in the work too. So it's a name of endearment. I came into this work from street homelessness here in Boston. And I can tell you that we're all facing a lot of challenges in every different demographic, and we don't need to go into what's going on in this country. And we definitely need to, of course, from a national standpoint, pressure and put the thumb on people like Mitch McConnell, no doubt about it. But also on the local level, I always try to stay organizing under my feet. And just a brief, quick story from a homeless standpoint, I'm gratefully housed now. But from a homeless standpoint, I try to stay out in the community. And I know a lot of folks who, from when I was out there, that are still out there. We're
That's
talking
right.
7-8 years ago, and they're still out there.
That's right.
And we have a mayor here who closed the 1,000-bed facility just out on Boston Harbor, and that was 7 years ago when I got into this work. And this will be winter number 7 with Long Island being closed. So, long short is, I could talk for a long time about it, but long short is when the pandemic did hit. Everybody was inside at the beginning of the shutdown, except the homeless. The homeless were still out there. So as I rode on the subway through my normal kind of beaten path, I would see nothing but homeless people. And you can see that this is the invisible crisis, that the homeless community. Homelessness is the very bottom. If you've ever been there, and Reverend Liz and anyone else who's out there. And we're going to see, when you've seen the very bottom, you see the abuse that happens, the human abuse that happens. And we're going to see, I think, unfortunately, a tidal wave of homelessness as these eviction moratoriums come off and as just the general economy goes. There's going to be no recovery for a long time. I think we all know that. So we're going to have to band together. But from a standpoint of being at the bottom, just please remember that there's already a basis for this, and a lot of people, unfortunately, are going to see that who aren't ready for it, who aren't used to it. And we as an activist community have to always remember that bottom and be ready to embrace people and also build a bottom-up movement, which is the Poor People's Campaign motto all the way through. So, and here with the National Union of the Homeless, I'll be very brief. We've got 14 to 16 major cities: Baltimore, Philadelphia, many in California, here in Boston, upstate New York, Washington State, and lots of people doing lots of different radical things to sort of bring to light the homeless crisis and also come together in a union-like model. So I just hope, I just ask.
Paul, that radical is righteous.
There you go.
That's right.
And,
I'm going to jump in just a second. Go ahead and finish your last statement.
Sure. And Willie Baptiste, I just want to mention him real quick. He's always saying that you get what you organize to take. And so we also need to find out what are the solutions. And there's a lot of public land. There's a lot of people in the legal community who are ready to do social justice work in the legal community, get land, look at creative ways to get housing. And so there are solutions out there, but just remember this. It's going to be bad. So we got to just all come together and forward together, not one step back.
That's right. I'm glad you mentioned that too, about organizing under your feet, because we don't ever take away from the local, but it is critical when somebody is so mean and so creating so much misery. One person, right? That's taking the things that would even allow people to keep organizing locally because they would have some breathing room. We have to take that on, and we have to take the other on. And that's why it's so critical right now that America sees the bottom. You know, in various ways, people have been there. Some people talk about having been there. Some people don't talk about having been there. You just mentioned people that are going there that don't even realize they're going there. They don't know what, they don't have a clue. But we've got to expose the story. And that's why I'm glad you all tell it, because sometimes people get on, you know, and they try to say, but I made it, I'm doing this. But sometimes people need to hear the rawness. A lot of folk are not making it. A lot of folk are just hurting and being devastated. And a lot of it right now, and we challenge Democrats and Republicans, but I will every day of my life challenge a person who will not even allow something to be discussed. See, because here's the thing, by Mitch McConnell not allowing the bill on the floor, you can't even get the amendments. Let's just say somebody wanted to amend it and say, well, we're going to open up 2,500 houses that are vacant in every city. We're going to add this as a rider onto the bill. You can't get on the put a rider, and the bill is not even on the floor. And so, you know, when we're not with COVID, I'm all about, we might have to go take up our homes in the Capitol and stay there for a while in Mitch McConnell's office. So, you know, but that's for a later date, you know, but right now, and if it gets too bad, we might still have to do it. But in the midst of COVID, and right now, tomorrow, this man could ease the pain a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to get up and shout and say he's Jesus and God, and we glad he did, because he would just be doing what he ought to do. But right now, he is literally holding up, y'all, I want you to hear this across the country, literally holding up just a little help, because he wants corporations to not be protected from liability. And he wants an F-35 billion plane. That's sinful. That's ungodly. It's wrong. And that's why we got to come together across this nation. And that's why we will. Thank you so much, Crystal and Brother Paul. Can I call you Pablo, you know, since it's a term of endearment?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I feel like we brothers in that. And we got some real fighting to do. Don't y'all think that this election is the end of our battle. We're going to go first fight now, fight at the election, and after the election, whoever wins, we're going to fight, because it's time to turn this stuff around. Mark Ruffalo, you got me? You on? You know, we need you to, our brother, he's with us today. You all know him as an actor, but I know him as an activist. And he brings that fire, brings that power. He said, I want to be on this one. In fact, Rob, we might need to have evictions as the next one too. We'll talk about that later, because there's so much here. But Rob, talk to us today from all across, and why you sent out to over 6 million people telling them we need to be about joining this and jamming McConnell and calling for this just and compassionate and equitable relief bill.
First of all, I'm here from the ancestral lands of the Lenape and Muncie Native people in New York. I'm honored to be here with you people. As a young actor, I experienced rent insecurity. I was poor. I could barely pay $200 a month rent. At one point, I had to live in my car between places to stay. And this is at a time in America when we were prosperous in the 90s. Now we're looking at the greatest, most devastating public health crisis in the history of our country, which has led the biggest economic crisis in the history of our country. And with our leadership, we have one man, Mitch McConnell, who jokingly calls himself the Grim Reaper as a rejoinder to his abject, irresponsible way of dealing with the problems that this country has, by just refusing to even talk about the issues that are happening today. Now we have 20 million people that are about to be turned on the streets. I don't think people really understand what that means. That means the homeless people that you see right now are nothing compared to the wall of human suffering that's coming our way. And what does that mean? Where do we go from there? How do we ever recover? Where do we get homes for these people after they're turned out? Now we're sitting on trillions and trillions of dollars. We have the Republicans who are willing to explode our deficit. And they're willing to do it not to help us, any of us, but to pay huge corporations bailouts, which is fine. Okay, you do that with the idea that trickle down is going to take care of the rest of us, but it never does and it never has.
Never has.
And so here we are. We're facing suffering, untold suffering that this country has never known before. And Mitch McConnell, one man, is standing in the way of us even talking about it, even bringing it to the floor to speak about it, to hear the people's needs, and to have our other senators, both Republican and Democrat, shame on you for not addressing this issue and not fighting every single day. Why are we not hearing from our leadership? Why are we not hearing from our candidates about 20 million people about to be turned out on the streets? We need to make this a national issue. We need to make it a presidential issue. You people are doing God's work here. I am so grateful to be here with you, every single one of you. I am one of the people who's been so blessed in this country. And I invite my brothers and sisters who've been blessed in the same way to come out and speak in the same way and to shed some light on this, because this is who we are about as a nation. This is our values. And the reason that we don't have more than half Americans not voting is because we're not taking care of them. The Republicans aren't taking care of them, and the Democrats aren't taking care of them, and we're not even talking to them.
That's right.
And so I get on the phone and give this guy hell. He is the I want to believe that there's something decent in people somewhere. Mitch McConnell must love somebody. He must have a heart in his body. He must care about somebody. And so I'm appealing to that part of you, Mitch McConnell, that has some sense of decency or love in you, to have a little compassion for so many people suffering. You call yourselves Christians when we know Christians by their acts.
That's right.
Where is your hearts? Where are we going? Who are we, America? This is happening because of negligence from our leadership. And now the people are paying and you won't even help them? You want to buy a fucking fighter jet?
That's right.
It's obscene. It's obscene.
Yeah.
So call Mitch McConnell, give him hell, call your senators, call but Mitch McConnell's the guy. He's the guy. I hate to say it. There's one man in this nation right now that is holding up this kind of relief for people, and it's Mitch McConnell. He won't even let us talk about it. It's obscene. So
it is, Mark. And Mark, when you just said that, it reminded me of a scripture. And when I say stuff like this, sometimes, Reverend Barbara, you're not being civil enough. Preachers are supposed to be. I said, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you what the scriptures say. Do you know the scriptures say about people who will hurt the homeless like this? And that the Bible in Ezekiel says your politicians have become like wolves, rabies-infested wolves who are devouring the people. And then it says, if we go along with it, it says, and the priests are just going along with it. Well, I refuse to go along with it. And these brothers and sisters here. And I want to say, Mark, you've been such a blessing. I think one of the things I hope we can do is come back to this on next Monday. Let's talk in between time, get some other folk like you that can come on and stand with these brothers and sisters so we can elevate this issue. And Rob, what we're talking about is maybe we can create a link too, where we have thousands, I hope 1 million people that will send something to both candidates nationally and saying, you have got to make this a part of the national conversation, the national debate. You cannot leave this out. So we're talking to Mitch McConnell, and we're saying you can't go through a campaign and not say the poor and the homeless and put a spotlight on this stuff. I was sitting there thinking, that some estimates say 35 million. Well, okay, if we got 45 million people in this country, 450 million people in this country, that's nearly 10%. And then 10% of people who will be homeless, right? In the wealthiest nation in the world. While over the past few months, and this is the most damnable thing, I think the last number we counted was $755 billion is what the top 1% has made, right? Has made and reinvested in their own stock market. We have got to stand up for this. And I want to say, Mark, let's talk about, let's keep pushing all of those with the various homeless unions. See, it's always going to be the rejected that's going to lead the revival. And when some rejected folk get together, and as people said, Mark said his story, people don't know mine, Liz is open about hers. We don't always know the places people come from, but if we come together. And we had this last week, the March on Washington, and some people were talking about it. I want to read something as we close today, Rob, that a lot of people don't know. First of all, because we domesticate Dr. King. I hate that, and corporatize. But in another speech, he said this, and this is where I really feel like we are. And this is the night before he was killed. He said, now let me say, as I move to my conclusion, that we've got to give ourselves to this struggle until the end. And understand that when he said that, he had already sent in his sermon for that Sunday, which was going to be America May Just Go to Hell. That was going to be his sermon that Sunday. If you don't change and address poverty and militarism race, you may go to hell. And then that night before they killed him, he said, we must give ourselves to this struggle until the end. And these are the words that I live with. I often repeat them 50 times a week. Nothing would be more tragic than for us to stop at this point. We have got to see this through. We either go up together or we go down together. So wherever you are, just repeat this after me. If you can mute, you don't have to do it online. Nothing would be more tragic than for us to turn back and stop at this point.
At this point.
We've got to see it through.
We've got to see it through.
Because either we go up together,
we go
up together,
or we go down together.
Or we go down together.
Well, Mark, I refuse to go down. And I think it's time for us to be transformed, just like the Hulk gets transformed. We need to be transformed and get all of that soul energy and power and whatever it is that what's that stuff, that gamma. We need some grace and whatever we're gonna call it, grace rays and some God rays and whatever else we need. But it's time for us to be fully transformed, put on our fighting bodies, because we got to take on this monster of inequality. And if we do it, I know we can win, but we've got to fight, and it's going to be hard, but we must do it. Fact of the matter is, we have no other option. You all have been on Moral Mondays, National Moral Mondays, Poor People's Campaign, focused on Mitch McConnell, meanness, mayhem, and misery. We've been calling him and jamming the lines. We're doing this now, New Jack City style or old style sit-in. But believe you me, when we can get in the street and COVID is not there, we're going to do what we have to do, but we're not going away easy. We're going to continue to push him. And Mark told us today, we got to push even our other candidates. Not only must we jam McConnell for what he's not doing, we got to push other folk for what they're not saying. And we're going to figure out how to do that. Join us next Monday. Join us, come back, because we're going to have something special for you. But the one thing you can always know, we're not going anywhere. We're in this battle to the end. Mark, you got something to close us out with?
Yes, keep calling, keep calling, keep calling. Just keep calling. They're closing down their lines, so just keep calling.
That's right. And they are getting the message. I want y'all to know, we're getting calls. He even called some Democrats and said, what is all this going on? Why are they calling? What's going on? Well, he knows what's going on, and we're going to keep on and keep on and keep on. And anybody that you can send it anywhere, if you all know media people, you know this is happening, tell them you were on the line with tens of thousands of people today. Tell them we're making hundreds of thousands of calls. We've had, I think after today, we probably will have had close to 1 million people that have come on Moral Mondays. And I pray for the day that we get to one where we actually have a 1 million on one Moral Monday. Let's do this, y'all. Let's build power. We have more power than we realize. Let's do it. God bless you.
Hey, Reverend Barber.
Go to Poor People's. Yes.
Oh, you can still hear. I know you're getting a little older, so I didn't know if you'd lost your hearing yet. We wanted to put everybody on gallery view just to celebrate you. We know that we're doing a lot of hard work, and it can get hard and heavy sometimes with the losses that we're seeing across the country. But we just want to take a moment to celebrate you as our Maya Angelou says, courage is most important because it allows you to practice everything else. And you've been our courage for a long time and for this nation. Right. We just want to celebrate you and say happy birthday, and we thank God for you.
Well, bless. We got that video too at the end.
Yeah, we'll dedicate it to you. Okay. So we'll rock out here at the end.
All right. Well, thank y'all for the birthday, everybody. We've been born for such a time as this.
Yes,
We've
sir.
been born for such a time as this. Rob, thank you for everything you're doing. Everybody's been helping out. They're telling me you said don't get off. Okay.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. So thanks everybody for joining. Next week is Labor Day. We're going to honor the labor movement and follow their lead. And so we won't be back on next week.
Got a video coming on at this time, right?
Yes, there'll be a video. There'll be a video focused on labor and the movement next week this time. Then the following week we have our massive teach-in and training, massive teach-in on September 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern. You want to definitely come out for that. We're trying to get everyone to come on, especially as bubbling up all over the country right now. People are asking, what can they do? Well, the first place to come is September 14th at 7 p.m. We'll have a teach-in from some amazing civil rights attorneys that are going to tell you how to jump in, how to get involved with defending this democracy, becoming democracy defenders, because we have a lot of power, and we know that people want to know how to jump in, and that's going to be a great way to do just that. And we'll be back on the 21st with a caravan of love to Senator McConnell's offices and each of his local offices in Kentucky, and also working on a solidarity march in DC for the 21st. But please go to the website and sign up and share this out with everybody in the weeks to come, and keep on going to Call Mitch McConnell all week. You can call him once a day if you want. I know that his mailbox is full. It is in a couple places, so we'll keep on moving the target around so that we can get some open mailboxes for you to fill. Reverend Liz, do you have anything else? And otherwise, we're going to close out with some music, and then at the very end, you'll see some pictures, actually, Sierra, from y'all's march this past week in DC. If you want to stay on, and some flyers as well at the end after the music.
Sunday night.
Oh yes, well we'll put that out. That we're gonna have another birthday celebration Sunday night. If you just keep a lookout on Facebook for that. All right, we good? All right, let's roll out with some music from Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody's hurting my people.